Hello again, Jason Lenzi here for Tangents with Alex and Jason. Anyone who knows me or knows Alex over the years knows how important Flash Gordon, the movie from 1980, is for us. Easily Alex's favorite movie, one of mine. I spent a long time dreaming about Flash Gordon action figures and merchandise throughout my life and finally got to make them with Biff Bang Pow. We did it several times, and I'm very proud of that work. And Alex did a lot of the art direction on the first wave. So all of that stuff means a lot to us. And one of the characters in the film, Clytus, was played by a man called Peter Wingard, who had a very interesting career as a British actor and slightly tragic at certain points. But there's a fascinating offshoot that involves Marvel Comics and Peter Wingard and the Hellfire Club. And if you know Marvel Comics, you know it, but I thought it would be fun to have Alex tell us what the connection is. So here it is.
Okay, so last time we talked, we had talked about Jason King, Peter Wingard, our pal from Clytus, Flash Gordon, played Clytus, but he was very well known on UK television, and he had a show called Department S that he was in as a character called Jason King, and then got his own show. Can you just kind of give me a refresher on what is the connection with the Hellfire Club from the Marvel Comics?
It all relates to the original British Avengers show. So, and that itself relating to both X-Men writer and artist Claremont and Byrne. So both had seen the show in the 60s, I think before it was syndicated here. And I forget the origin of this. I want to say that Byrne lived in the UK at one point.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was true for, I forget the story of both those guys' lives. Anyways, they're exposed to it, so they actually know that stuff when it was being rolling out in the mid-'60s, as well as, you know, we know that our boy, Jason Wingard, was playing the leader of the freaking Hellfire Club in an episode of Avengers, which is bonkers when you watch it. You're like, wait a minute, how, what? You know, so you basically get this secretive organization making fun of all the type of British secret society organizations where they took Emma Peel, and once you watch the story, you go, holy shit, that is the origin of, you know, what happened with Jean Grey, ultimately on her path to becoming Dark Phoenix. You know, they take her, they've mind-controlled her, now she's all messed up, and eventually, you know, bad things come out because of this mind manipulation, and that was the storyline path. So in a way, the Hellfire Club stuff is very important in X-Men history because it's leading to basically their biggest storyline. It's all part of the biggest storyline being the rise of Dark Phoenix and her death. Anyway, so as far as the Jason King aspect, that's just, you know, coming off of being in this Avengers show and of other work that, you know, that Wingard got. You know, he gets the spin-off show playing Jason King, so the name gets associated with him. Spin-off of, was it Department Q?
So the show was Department S. The character was called Jason King. But just to rewind for a second. So, see, I didn't know that. I know the Avengers episode. I didn't find this out until, you know, years after I had seen the original show, the episodes on rental or something. So the episode of the Hellfire Club, you know, Peter Wingard's character is in charge of it, and he's you know, it's like a throwback to another time, and it's a little bit of S&M, and she's in the S&M kind of outfit and stuff. So when they make it the Hellfire Club in the comics, which is the late 70s, early 80s, like when does that come into the comics?
We're talking late 70s, I believe, because I think we're talking about 79. So I want to say that the death of Phoenix happens in 80, and I forget the publishing schedule because I wasn't.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, it's the kind of thing that I was very aware of it, but not because I bought him. The only one I bought myself was that death issue and the issues leading up to it involving the Hellfire Club, I had seen in stores, grocery stores, where I would go with my mom, make time looking at other comics, and then whatever I would ask to get to buy, since I still didn't have my own money at the age of 10, you know, I would flip through those X-Men books, and I remember the indelibility of the images. I remember when the entire X-Men group gets kidnapped by the Hellfire Club, and as part of their being under their control, they get stripped down. And you see this indicated in the artwork where it's like naked bodies, which isn't obviously illustrated as fully as you could imagine,
right?
But more the fact that, like, I mean, basically the naked bodies in question are Storm, Colossus, and Wolverine, and they're all getting stripped down. And the most distinctive thing of that isn't just that you've got the Black Woman who is being laid bare and her nutty parts are covered just in the careful way that the bodies are posed, but Byrne did one of his contributions to defining Wolverine as a very distinctive character is he made her suit in a way that nobody had done before. His original designer didn't do this. The artist preceding him, Dave Cockrum, didn't do this. And so Byrne's adding a thing that you really hadn't seen done a whole lot in comics, which is drawing the idea of a guy who's got a lot of body hair, where he's got visible hair you're not going to ignore. Characters like Hawkman and Submariner always went around shirtless.
Right.
Nobody's got body hair. Nobody's even got a little bit.
Right.
Okay. So now you've got an artist making a point of drawing all these little bits of hair, and it felt naughty. It felt like this thing of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually seeing this, when it's like, well, technically it's not dirty, but it was unusual and new and very much a shock to the system, because it felt that much more lived in and real when you saw this body that it wasn't ideal. No man who's particularly hirsute is overly thrilled, even though the 1970s seems to be the biggest celebration of having a hairy chest, obviously.
He did this to several characters, or this was mainly the Jason Wingard character, you're saying?
No. I'm talking about what he did to Wolverine.
Oh, Wolverine. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Jason Wingard's character never gets his shirt off. Basically, the Jason Wingard character is a non-existent character. What I mean by that is when the group of the Hellfire Club, this version of them is introduced, it is ultimately led by a bad guy named Sebastian Shaw, not Stan, but Shaw. And actually, I'd have to check and see if the name Shaw was actually taken from Robert Shaw, the actor from Jaws.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I'm sure they've answered for that. It wasn't looking like him. We definitely know that. But yeah, Jason Wingard. So they combine the first name of Jason King with the last name of the actor, Peter Wingard. Anyway, so you get Jason Wingard is basically a member of this group, and then it's revealed later in the story that, oh, he's actually a supervillain you've known for years called Mastermind. Oh. So his whole appearance is a projection into everybody's minds. So he actually looks like this really skeevy looking guy with like oily, slick black hair and a twirling mustache. And, he was a character that was one of the original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants when, in that first couple of years of the X-Men book in the mid-'60s, Magneto got his gang together. There was Toad, there was Mastermind, there was, there was his son and daughter, which we didn't know that was going to be the case yet.
Right.
It was just Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And, of course, that storyline of the idea that they didn't know quite what they were getting themselves into and they weren't really bad people. And then, again, the whole build-up to them being redeemed by joining the Avengers seemed to be in the hands of, Lee and Kirby pretty clearly from the outset that, like, this is something where they're not really bad guys. The other guys, like Mastermind, they're bad guys. They're all of a type. I mean, the Toad character was like a toady and clearly was just, this guy that was going to be pushed around the whole time he was in the group and whatever. But anyways, this is just a weird thing.
When I was lucky to meet Peter Wingard at the 30th anniversary for Flash Gordon, it's one of the things we talked about. We talked about his fashion line, the clothing that he had out in the early 70s, because he...
Oh, wow.
massive sex symbol for a brief time with that
Yep.
crazy Jason King wig and facial hair and stuff. And one of the things I asked him was whether he knew the connection with comics, with Marvel Comics, and he said, "Oh, someone I just heard about this," and we kind of went through it, and I did my best to kind of say what the connection was. But
I mean, it's a goofy thing to think about the fact that this has a very big footprint in comics,
right,
and all the way up until including the Sebastian Stan character as played by Kevin Bacon in the X-Men First Class
right,
movie.
because they bring
They bring in the Hellfire Club, they put in most of the things, but without the connection to that Phoenix storyline and a lot of the other pieces, there's no Jason Wingard in it. So the Sebastian Shaw becomes the only character they adapted. Oh, I'm sorry, Emma Frost. And Emma Frost becomes the legacy character growing from that has the most potency in terms of comics, whereas there were other members of the team which weren't, as far as I could tell, they weren't pastiches based upon anything from the Avengers or from the Jason King show. I mean, as far as I know, your big things coming there is you've got Peter Wingard being adapted, and shit, man, I got two friends of mine calling me back to back. Everybody expects that I'm up at midnight. Anyway, sorry. What was I saying? This is going to sound horrible for your recording.
We'll wrap it up. But my question then is, because I don't know enough about the comic, I think I knew that Emma Frost was involved in some way, and Jean Grey, and sort of the time frame and everything.
You can kind of suggest that Emma Frost herself is an extrapolation from them of like, well, if you're going to have Emma Peel become the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, and they do that to Jean Grey, well, where's the White Queen? There must be that sort of parallel. And so that allowed for a great new character invention. So I'm still going to assume that her very existence is a byproduct of that influence from the Avengers British TV show.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a cascade effect of one idea leads to the other and the other and so on.
And it wouldn't have been, common knowledge at that point. I'd imagine that more Brits might have gotten the connection than certainly in America would have known.
Although, yeah, very true. But at the same time, I mean, didn't we get the Avengers show into the American market in the mid to late 60s?
Oh, yeah. No, it was huge. It was ABC was the company over there, because it wasn't a BBC thing. And yeah, it went around the world, and it was huge all over the world.
Although I got to imagine, I think there's some writing about this, and I forget who's researched it, but basically that episode might have been one of the ones that they cut, edited, or something, because, you've got the whole bondage wear thing that, Emma Peel's wearing, which would have been considered pretty challenging in America at that time.
Carrying a snake? I mean, that's a little suggestive. But there's something about that episode that either it was never repeated in the UK or that it didn't go out to America. That was too risky to go out on American television. But you're saying the notion of this Hellfire Club in the show is very much, these men are dressed, I'm going to get the period wrong, but you know what I mean, that sort of not Victorian, but kind of, slightly swashbuckling, era.
Well, I think that we're talking probably 17th century. So it's the ideal of the 17th century when there was a certain peak of the pompous kind of wealth that existed in terms of the UK and all of Europe. So that's how it appeared at that time. And I'm sure it was similar enough here as well.
And the thrust of it, if you will, was, crime and debauchery. It was like, wouldn't it be great if we could go back to that time? So there's not really, so for the group itself in the comic, I mean, because isn't there kind of a connection with that era too, like in some of the outfits or some of the, like, I forget how, because you were saying that the Jason Wingard character is more of an impression in people's minds because he's pulling a fast one.
Yeah, and of course, artistically, the Jason King influence is basically, we're told it's supposed to be a handsome man. I mean, art style-wise, the way it came across is, looked like a guy with big hair and a big mustache.
Right.
And at the point that that was being drawn in '79, I don't know how much it related, winning over our audience or Jean Grey. She wasn't somehow like, oh, I'm so charmed by this guy, but she was also out of her right mind because Mastermind just got into her head,
right,
and sort of had her being, I don't know, sort of romanced by this guy, pulling her into this group, and then she's, in their thrall.
And that was the big debut. And then how long did they ever pop into comics the last 40, 50 years, 45, 30 years?
Oh, constantly. No, they've never gone away. They have been a regular thing. In fact, I can't say so much where current standing is. I have read a lot of recent X-Men books, but I'm a little out of sorts in being able to conduct a thing saying, here's where it currently stands. Because just like a couple years ago, they were finishing off a storyline that was this long, drawn-out thing masterminded by, this one writer who's suddenly escaping my brain. Anyways, they did this thing. It was called the Krakoa storyline, where they had their own island for all the X-Men that was their exclusive playground and yada yada. So it was
still kind of a connection to the Hellfire Club, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, the Hellfire Club was still an active thing, and Sebastian Shaw was working with them as sort of like, hey, you've been a villain of ours in the past, you continue to be a bad guy in the world, but we're all mutants together and we're creating a mutant society, and you have to be on the council that is where we sort of, run everything. And it was a sort of unique take on the idea that you have to work with your enemies. That was the thrust of the storyline, and it all goes to shit at some point. But basically, the whole legacy of those characters. Although I don't know where currently we've caught up with Mastermind. If he might even not be alive for all I recall from his last usage in comics. It's just that, he's pretty essential to this whole concept here.
Well, I wondered if using, because I don't even know if they used the term Hellfire Club in First Class, but if that it was chosen.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay, so I always wondered if it was chosen because Matthew Vaughn I'm guessing is a big fan of the Avengers, the TV series, and it would seem like, because it doesn't really fit the era of where that show was. I mean, that movie was set. So,
well, I mean, it's slightly. Well, no, it works fine.
Does it?
Only, yeah, because I mean, think about it. The Avengers show was in the mid '60s, and then the movie X-Men First Class was based in 1962.
Right. No, I was saying the characters themselves not appearing until in the comics until the late 70s, early 80s kind of thing. That's what I meant, more that. But yeah, it lines up better with the TV show. But that's great. That's great. See, I knew you'd get there eventually about the health.
Well, I was about ready to say Robert Kirkman wrote this thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter if I could even recall it. But
no, that's great.
There's a big ass name writer, and I'm trying to remember because I've worked on stuff that he wrote, and he wrote the Secret Wars storyline that Jonathan Hickman. Sorry. For some reason, Hickman and Kirkman were kicking it out in my brain for memory space, and Kirkman was like coming up front and saying, no, me first. Anyways, so Jonathan Hickman, who's still a big deal in comics generally, he was the author of the whole Krakoa storyline thing that ran its course over a couple of years. Marvel, sorry.
Somebody got to Peter Wingard during his lifetime to let him know the influence that he and that character had on comics. And he was thrilled. When I talked to him about it, he was really, really tickled by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a weird thing to think, here's this guy that we know principally for what he gave to Clytus, but, here's this extended history of how important he is across all these different things, and to think that he's a part of X-Men history as an inspiration point. I mean, in a way, when you dip into looking at any of his stuff, looking him up on YouTube, watching his shows of Jason King, and, the sort of, secret agent dandy thing, I don't know what other precursors there are before him, but it's pretty awesome. I mean, in a way, it's funny because he's a man who's not out and proud at that point in history, even though obviously in his personal life he was. It's the amazing thing to go, okay, this is a thing, and nobody's catching on to the dandy is quite the dandy, but hey, you know, when you know the truth of the guy's life and
Yeah.
just his magnetism is, I think, is fantastic. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like I can take him all day. I should go back and watch some of those shows now, frankly, because
Yeah.
they're so fun.
He's got such presence, and he'd been around. He shows up in all kinds of stuff. You know, when you know, whether it's The Saint or you know, The Innocents, the horror movie The Innocents with Deborah Kerr. I always forget that he's in that too. And then all of a sudden, this weird thing happens with Department S, and he becomes the sort of standout character, gets his own show, and yeah, he's an absolute dandy. But the women went crazy for him for a while. You know, he'd get his shirt torn off trying to get out of a car to, you know, getting to the airport or something. And
that's an amazing thing out of the 1970s. There was so much of that had happened. There were so many popular figures that we look back on historically now and go, oh, it's very clear that's a gay man.
Right.
And you wonder, like, wait a minute, how did they not have radar for that back then? It's like, well, they didn't. They definitely didn't. I mean, we can find our examples within the modern age we're in right now, as well as the last 30 years of entertainment where you could point at the people and say, oh, yeah, that guy hadn't come out yet, and some haven't still, you know?
Right.
And there you go. So the next time you're having a drinking game and somebody says, what is it that connects Flash Gordon the movie to the Hellfire Club in Marvel Comics? You'll have an answer in 3 or 4 easy steps. Hope you've enjoyed that, and much more to come in these deep dives of sometimes useless information, but you never know. They might come in handy at a cocktail party. Hope you've enjoyed it. Speak soon.